am a reader in political theory at the University of Birmingham in the UK, the original Birmingham, and I'm on the ASAP Board of Directors, Academic Stand Against Poverty Board of Directors, and I'm the lead for the Impact Global Poverty Project. And I'm very excited to have you all here today because this is actually the culmination of several years of working through ideas about impact, about what impact might mean, about people who are having impact. And certainly in the last panel, you heard from some people some academics who are having some very significant impact in some very direct ways. So what I will do is offer a brief introduction, 13 to 15 minutes, on what we're going to see for the next 2 days. So this afternoon and then tomorrow. So just by way of background on the Impact Global Poverty Project and what we're doing here to bring people together. So what we've got this afternoon and tomorrow morning are heads of development institutes, heads of global justice centers, impact-oriented academics, all coming together to talk about ways in which they have sought to have direct positive impact on poverty alleviation policy and practice. Now, a little context. We're in the UK all tired of hearing about impact, which I'll show you in just a moment, because the government's really latched onto that idea. For my money, I think we can take the idea back for ourselves. But as I'm sure everyone knows, there's an increasing emphasis on outcomes among aid and development agencies, NGOs, research funding bodies. If you look on the websites now, almost every entity that deals with development issues feels compelled to offer something on the kind of impact it's having. So just as an example, the World Bank has this Development Impact Evaluation Initiative. They've got a logo for it, it's on their website. And in their words, DIME collaborates with 300 agencies in 72 countries to improve effectiveness. Value for money is the big buzzword these days. So all of the agencies seem to be talking about this, and this is one of their examples of one of the things they're doing. Female Stipend Program has increased girls' enrollment and attendance in school. And if you work in the UK, right now for the last 5 years, people have been pressuring you about this research excellence framework. In the UK, about every 6 years, every university is evaluated by the government, or the government hires senior academics, such as my colleague Heather Widdows there, who's on the philosophy panel, to look over the output, for research outputs of everyone in the UK. This time, they have incorporated an impact component. So 20% of the overall score is impact. They want to know how you're directly influencing not just people's thoughts, but policy, NGO practice, those sorts of things. You've got to show concrete impact. It's serious because it allocates government funding for research, not as much as it used to, but still a substantial portion of every university's research funding comes from this government assessment. They'll rank every department in every field, and they'll allocate accordingly the funding. And as I said, 20% of the overall score is for impact now. Well, we've got a project at Academic Stand Against Poverty, the global network that Thomas Pogge heads. He's our president. There are 8 others of us on the board of directors. And at the heart of the ASAP initiative, I like to think, is having direct positive impact on poverty alleviation policy and practice again. So the Impact Global Poverty Project has simply been a way so far of talking to people who are very good at this. So Harvey Rubin was one example. He's profiled on our website. There are many other people sitting in this room who either have been or will be getting that email that says, would you mind if we profiled you about your work, your impact-oriented work? So it's about sharing information and best practices from academic efforts to promote that direct positive impact. And this is just a photo from some field research that I was doing this summer. So just illustrative. But what kind of methodology are we talking about here? What kind of model? Do we want to simply adopt a hierarchical top-down model, sort of the way governments do it, aid agencies do it? I think probably not. Probably what we want to do is use the expertise, the knowledge of people in our networks, and try to identify best practices, try to have a ground-up methodology. And this is just some sort of R&B group called Ground Up, but it's what came up on Google Images. It's kind of fun. So I like to think that we're developing with a dialogic methodology. We're encouraged to share our views about how we conceptualize impact, how we think about it, how we pursue it, and then how we might measure it, how we might know when we're having it, the best ways to do that. The UK government has ways it wants those things done, and there have been some academics who've raised some good criticisms about that. So I think there's a lot more dialogue to be had before we decide that these kinds of things are settled. Our first steps have been on the impact stories. So if you look on the Academic Stand Against Poverty website, www.academicstand.org, you'll see there at the very top some featured articles. And we try to rotate them frequently, so we'll always have 2 featured articles, which are generally profiles. They might be a Q&A profile. Right now we've got one on an academic named Paul Jackson, who's been doing some very significant work in Nepal. They've actually brought him in for post-conflict resolution. And the reason ASAP cares about that sort of thing is because it can be very, obviously civil war can have very significant poverty implications. What Paul has been doing is mediating between the two sides, brokering them, and trying to help the former rebels integrate into either the army or civilian life. So it's just a profile on how he ended up doing that sort of work. He's actually trained as an Africanist, and also the lessons he's learned and the lessons he might share for others who are interested in that kind of direct, impact-oriented work. We've also got Alex Cobham, who's been in the UK doing some very interesting work on illicit financial flows. And the angle there is that he was a researcher at Oxford, and he decided that actually by going into civil society, he would be able to have more impact. So actually he made the conscious decision based on the impact that he thought he could have. He wanted to stop producing the papers and simply deal with policymakers and that sort of thing more directly. So the guiding questions for the project, or for the impact stories, is how are the academics seeking to use their position and or research findings to influence public policy, development NGO and aid agency practice, and then civil society groups practice. And of course, sometimes there's not a fine line between those. Let me give you some concrete examples. So with us today, one of our keynote speakers this afternoon, Professor Thorat, and that's cut off, I'm afraid, a little bit. But his work has been about putting caste discrimination on the academic agenda in India and also on policymakers' agenda in some very significant ways. So he's currently chairman of Indian Council of Social Science Research, formerly was chair of India's University Grants Commission. His research is on caste-related economic exclusion. And if you look at his profile that's on the website, you'll see that early in his career, he had some real challenges in being able to work on the kind of issues that he thought were important, the caste issues. It wasn't until relatively well into his career that he was able to work on those kinds of issues. And because of his efforts within the infrastructure, if you will, of Indian academia, many, many more people are now empowered to be able to work on those kinds of issues. So he developed the Indian Institute for Dalit Studies, 32 centers for the study of social exclusion and inclusive policy, so was able to use his position as the head of the Grants Commission to see that through. And then some current emphases are on caste-based affirmative action in India's private sector. Another profile is on Professor Fenwick at Imperial College in London, treating millions suffering from neglected tropical diseases. You know, it sounds easy. You go get a $100 million grant from the Gates Foundation, and you use it to improve distribution of the medicines. The medicines are available. It's just getting them to the kids who need them. And they've done some really significant work. I mean, scores of millions of kids are, their life chances have been dramatically improved because the kinds of diseases that are being treated here are mainly the debilitating diseases. So parasitic infections that weaken you for 20 years, just make it very difficult for you to lead a full, robust life and to, limit your work opportunities, many other things. So one example in Uganda, when they started just a few years ago, 26% of school children were suffering from schistosomiasis, and now it's down to 3%. And I've seen him present on this. It's very, very dramatic, direct impact, and that's an academic using what he knows and taking it to a situation, applying it to a real-life situation, and really improving the lives of so many people. And then I don't want it to, I've consciously not wanted the project to be simply about high-level, very prominent researchers who get millions and millions in grants and are thus able to do that. Some of the things we can do as academics also are simply use our position, our societal standing, if you will, to do the things that we think are important. And I think not all of us are built as campaigners, but for those of us who are, there are ways to use the academic position to have impact in ways that you think are important and that I would submit are very important as well. So here's a very junior lecturer in Delhi University, Bijay Laxmanandi, and she has, through her work, gotten very interested and about the issue of selective selective abortion of female babies. So if you go to Delhi, it's not hard to see the clinics on the street, and if they're pointed out to you for what they are, this is where middle class people, but also increasingly people with less money, can go to find out the sex of their baby, and then to terminate if many people choose to terminate if it's a girl. So one of the things this campaign's been doing is working with local community leaders around Delhi to promote the valuing of girl children. And how do they do this? Well, traditionally when a boy child is born in some of these neighborhoods, members of the family will go out and bang drums and make noise, have a joyous celebration through the streets to announce the birth. When there's a girl child, they say, oh, well, okay, good luck with the dowry. And what this group has been doing is encouraging local women and local families to celebrate as well the birth of girl children. So now in the neighborhoods where they've been working, it's not uncommon for the drums to be banged and the trumpets to be blown when a girl child is blown as well. Very sort of close to the coalface kind of things, but I would submit very significant in many ways. And of course, it feeds into demonstrations and pressure on policymakers, so she works with street theater groups and things like that. So again, not a $100 million grant, but more of a ground-up effort to address a problem that she identified through her academic work and thought she could find ways to do something about. Those are just three examples. Everyone I would suspect in this room someday would merit a profile. I think we're all probably impact-oriented in ways sometimes that we don't even realize. So I hope that you'll think in those terms, and I hope that you will nominate either yourself or people you know to me, to the group, for an impact profile. We would love to know about the kind of work people are doing. Anything that's impact-oriented would be great. Okay. And the next step is this conference, bringing together people to think about this systematically, to talk about the efforts they've done. We're going to hear some great stories, I think, the next couple of days. And then we'll have a dialogue session. We call it a closed session, but bringing together the heads of the institutes, all the presenters, tomorrow afternoon, and we'll just sit down in small groups and then share what we know about impact and about promoting it, conceptualizing it, and then hopefully begin to build global cooperation. I would love to have a global network of impact-oriented academics come out of this meeting where we just start talking to each other a little more. Okay?